Okay. I'm pretty sure this is going to go on YouTube, but I'm not entirely positive. I want to hear people's thoughts on this, so I'm curious what people are going to say, both in chat and in the comments. I'm actually going to put YouTube chat on the screen for this as well, just in case they want to add to the discussion here, so that we can see what people are saying here. Sorry, Kick, I don't have a way to get you on the screener. What are your thoughts on orange? I love orange. Orange is a phenomenal color. I love fall in general. Okay. So, how do I want to talk about this? All right. The direction of a game in terms of grinding and the overall step away from an infinite grind, infinite progression MMO towards a weekly gated slop MMO. So we're gonna talk about a few points on the graph, okay? Because it's not just one thing and another thing, okay? It's not just because the obvious thing that everyone's gonna point to, we'll talk about that first. The obvious thing that everything is gonna point to, but then there's some not so obvious, very subtle things that I think that people may not have picked up on quite yet, but probably are frustrating adventurers. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is obviously weekly gated Adonia bosses, right? Now, this is obviously not very good. It's not good. It's not fun for endgame players, right? And it's not fun for new and mid-game players either. So, first of all, it's against the spirit of Black Desert Online in general, mainly just because, a lot of us picked up this game because we could play it infinitely and progress as fast or as slowly as we wanted to. It was kind of at your own pace, and you could do whatever you wanted to progress. Now you have to do this content, and you can only do it once a week, which is extremely discouraging for a lot of people, and I don't think that people like it. But honestly, we've beaten this dead horse to death. We've beaten this enough times that I don't really need to explain this. An aspect of it that I think that people don't understand very much is that end-game players like me are actually getting further in front of new and mid-game players than we were before the Adonia patch. So it's if you are only able to do a Therion once a week, right? That means you can, it's 4 weeks just to get your base armors, and then another 4 weeks to get them to pry, and that's if they don't fail, right? And then it's another probably, you're probably gonna fail one of the dudes, another 4 weeks on top of that, so you're talking about months and months and months of time, right? Versus somebody like me that's getting 4 stones a week, the gap just keeps widening. We get further and further and further and further in front of the players that A, can't do the content yet, that you get hopelessly far behind, and B, the players that can do the content but can't do the level of content that the rest of us can. Yeah, things like the weekly, the event quest help a little bit, but they help everyone, so it's really not helping new and mid-game players, right? And again, it's not fun to have your end game content gated either, so no one really likes the fact that they're gated. So let's move on to the next point, because this one's a little bit more subtle, and I don't think that people really understand why Agris is very bad for grinding gates content. Okay, so when Agris first came out in the game, it was it was kind of just a way to boost your trash loot, right? But trash loot wasn't really as important as it is today. So a lot of your grind was more based on the drops and the different items that you were gonna get while you were grinding, right? So you would get a big hit on a drop, and that would be 5 or 10 bill, or 1 bill or whatever, and then you got, a lot more money that particular hour. So it was a little bit better dispersed. Now, some spots were a little bit more reliant on trash loot than others, but some spots were Agris and some spots weren't. So if you ran out of Agris, it wasn't the end of the world. You could go to a spot that didn't require Agris, and you were fine, right? And it also wasn't necessarily as particularly a big thing at various grind zones in the game, because again, a lot of the grind zones, you look at Dekia, Ash Forest, a lot of us, basically, it was not as much about the trash loot as it was about getting the Debo drops, right? That was important back then. Now, Agris has become an extremely toxic implementation into the game, and I think that Pearl Abyss is doing this very intentionally for a reason, and it's kind of sneaking up on a lot of adventurers. Now we've shifted from Agris spots and non-Agris spots and trash loot not being as important to your daily grind. Now Agris, every single grind zone in the game is an Agris spot, okay? And it all equally affects your ability to make a lot more money, okay? And I say a lot more money because the next point I'm going to make is that if you look at the Adonia spots, the vast majority of your silver per hour, because I've grinded all of them for God knows how many hours at this point, the vast majority of the silver per hour that you get at these grind zones is trash loot. It is 100% trash loot basically every time. I will just pull up. Now, I want to be clear, Garmoth is not a super great indicator for everything, but you can look at it. It's like, okay, well, what's getting us 3.3 bill of the 4.8, right? You're not actually making 4.8 because you're not really selling the distorteds, don't actually count, right? So, but I'm not going to get into all that. But look how much, look at the proportion of silver that is actually just trash loot at Zephyros, right? And you're only really making about 4-ish billion silver an hour once you take out all the stuff that you can't really sell at Zephyros. Maybe you're making like 4.2, but like the majority of what you're making is in the trash loot, right? The vast majority. You look at Tenebrum, it's going to be the same thing here. 2.9 billion of the about 3.5 to 3.4 bill that you're making total is all trash loot. Is all trash loot. And then you look down again. Orbit is the same. More of the same. Again, and then you look down at, where's Aetherion at? Aetherion, look, 2.8 billion an hour. Yeah, okay, buddy. Yeah, you get to sell the primordials. If you don't get a debo, maybe it's a little rough, but like, yeah, you can factor the debos in. A lot of players probably aren't really calculating necessarily a lot of this, but look at this, 2 billion. 2 billion of your grind. The vast majority of the silver that you're making per hour is in the trash loot, which means that now, since every spot is an Agris spot, the amount of silver per hour you make at the grind zone with and without Agris dramatically drops. Now, I can't change this. There we go. Look at that. Look at that fall off. So Zephyros Castle literally drops to 1.9 billion silver an hour in trash loot without Agris on. So all of this to say, Agris has become an overwhelmingly important part of our grind in BDO, not just for endgame players, but for mid-game players as well, because every single spot in the game is Agris. And Agris is, I mean, like your trash loot is literally almost all of your silver per hour. So if you don't have Agris, grinding feels terrible. I mean, like, literally you're making about half. Like, you're making, like, basically half the silver per hour that you were making before Agris. It's just gone. It feels miserable. You go from making, like, 3 to 4 bill an hour at Zephyros to, like, 1.5 to 2. It's awful. It feels so bad. And it's not just... And that's, like, the highest end grind right there. So, like, Agris, I think, is harming a lot of adventurers' ability to play the game very actively. Where before you could come in and you could grind for as long as you wanted and make a lot of silver per hour. And if you ran out of Agris, maybe your efficiency may have dropped by, 15, 20% or so. Or you just go to a different grind zone that doesn't have Agris or whatever. It isn't really affected by Agris and you would be fine. Now it's like, if you're out of Agris, you're just out of luck, bro. You're getting absolutely cooked. And it feels really bad. And so what happens here is that a lot of adventurers, I think most adventurers are going to look at this and they're going to say, well, I'm just not going to grind if I don't have Agris. And I think that this is actually an intentional play from Perlibus. I think that they are headed more and more towards this weekly gated content because of what happened with Sovereign. But I think that they can also monetize Agris as well is a big reason why they've shifted this way. Like, they're going to say it. They're going to do it under the guise that, like, oh, well, we made every spot Agris so that you don't have to worry about it. Is a spot Agris? Is a spot not Agris? No, they're going to pretend it was for us, but I'm fairly certain that, like, it's a create a problem and sell the solution angle here because you have things in the game that are... Like you have these pay-to-win, like, Blessing of Old Moon Scrolls, and really the only way to get these in bulk is to spend a shitload of money, right? And this gives you a lot more trash per hour. You also get these golden coins, and yeah, they hand these out, like, how many would you guys say that we get of these a year? I would say that we get maybe 5 to 10 coins a year. Tops. Like, 5 to 10 coins a year. Like, not almost none, right? Those are like the free ones that you get. You're not going to have very many coins to use here. These you can get in infinity of if you just spend money, right? And that is basically just an Agris button. It's not going to be quite as good as Agris, but like it's still, you know, you can't go wrong with something like this. It'll bring grinding to a reasonable level again. So I think that part of the problem here is that it's a create the problem, sell the solution for Perlibus. And I think the reason that they're starting to move toward this weekly gated shit, at least these two things here, is because they looked at Sovereign as a complete failure. They see it as a complete failure, right? I don't think that the player base sees Sovereign as a tremendous failure. I think that the developers do see it as a tremendous failure. Because, and you'll notice that they apologized for it for no reason. And nobody was like, oh my God, such a disappointment. No. They came out and apologized like 6 times. They were so disappointed that we had gotten our Sovereign weapons on day 1. Like, they were like, yeah, so like this is gonna, like the deck Sovereign is for like the elite adventurers. It's gonna take them years to finish this content. And we get it. It's like, okay, we're done. Like, it was instant, right? Instant. For a lot of us. And I think the devs were like, well, shit, we failed them. I don't think it was a failure. See, what they told us, we failed you, is what they said. We will not design anything like that you can finish in like one day, right? That's what they said. What I think is actually happening, and like you could say again, people are going to disagree with me on this or whatever. I think that it is just, they want to be lazy as developers. I'm just going to be honest with you. I think that they want to step away from Black Desert as a development team, and they want to spend more resources developing other games. And so when they develop content like Sovereign that is supposed to take us like 2 years to do, and they're like, oh, sweet, whew, we're done. We don't have to worry about weapons for 2 years. And then we finish it in a day. They're like, now they have to go back and develop something new for us that doesn't take that long, right? So like, or that takes a lot longer, right? So like, I think that they saw Sovereign as a failure, and that's the reason that the Adania bosses, and they see Adania as a massive success because they've gated it in such a way that like adventurers are just not completing it right away, right? They're able to control the timeline, which is completely against the spirit of the game and why a lot of adventurers absolutely love playing BDO, right? I think that we've been starting this like cascade of weekly gated content ever since I think the first, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section on the video or in chat right now, the first weekly gated content that I can remember that actually did gate our ability to play the game was probably the weekly T10 horse stuff. Is the first weekly content that really people cared about. We had Imperial Alchemy and cooking. That is technically, it was like daily gated, right? But that was a little bit different, and it was daily gated for a reason. It didn't really stop you from making a bunch of stuff, but like, because you could still sell them to the marketplace and stuff. So like it throttled it a little bit, but it wasn't really like the T10 was the very first thing where it's like, okay, well, you're not allowed to have your T10 horse. We're gonna weekly gate how many times you can attempt, right? It was the Zarka Journal, the Infestation. Yeah, but they took that away though, right? It's not weekly gated anymore. It was weekly gated when it started, and that was shitty. But like, I'm talking about like content that is like long-term content that adventurers are going to have to strive toward and achieve. The Zarka Journal was like, yeah, you just go do your Zarka thing once every like 4 weeks or whatever. You do once a week for 4 weeks and then you're done, right? But the T10 was a much more long-term weekly gated content for adventurers that really, really wanted to have a T10 horse. And I think that they saw this as a success, right? And they saw the T10 horse as a complete success. The community bitched, whined, and moaned about this. J-Kun hated this, right? Lots of people did not like the fact that, and still don't like the fact that the T10 horse stuff is weekly gated content. Like, it's constant, right? It's gotten a lot better. They gave away a free T10 of your choosing, but like, it felt terrible, but they saw it as a success because it was their way of keeping the T10 horse really rare. And it's really concerning that they went from this to Agris to gated Adania bosses, right? And the only content that they've created that hasn't really been gated is Sovereign, right? Because the next thing that they did after the next thing they did after the T10 is the Karazad gate. Right? Hey, we're gonna gate your ability to get deck Karazad. Like, okay. Sweet. Great. Awesome. I think that a lot of players overlook the Karazad gate though, because it was really only a gate for players that were like the super end game adventurers that like it was meant to slow down the end game adventurers, whereas a new player or a mid game player could stockpile the stones a tremendous amount before as long as they did their dark rifts, you know, by the time they reached new to deck Karazad, they could have hundreds of stones and bang out the attempts, and they would only really be limited by Kron stones. So like nobody really talked about how Karazad gated, like Karazad is gated content, right? Like the deck Karazad specifically from new to deck. And there's no way around it. You literally cannot get around it. But yeah, I think a reason a lot of people don't talk about it is because new and mid-game players kind of get past that. So maybe you could argue that Karazad was the correct way to do weekly content, but you're still pissing off end-game players by doing that. Weekly gated Adania bosses are a total failure, in my opinion. So you move forward, and again, we talked about weekly gated Adania bosses first. Now we're going to circle back to them a little bit here. Because like, you know, it's weekly gate, weekly gate, weekly gate, weekly gate, and then Adania is just flat out. They're just saying, yeah, no, you just can't have your armor unless you do these bosses every week for the next 2 years, basically. 2-3 years. The Adania bosses are horrendously badly designed. Not the bosses themselves. The bosses themselves, in my opinion, are unique and actually fun to do. Reasonably, Karshan, maybe you need to expand the platforms a little bit, as a lot of people found out this week. But like, on the whole, the bosses themselves are designed reasonably. But like, the fact that they are weekly gated and the fact that you can't actually choose which boss you're gonna go fight is really annoying. So like, I never get to go fight Jordine. I don't get to go fight Encelar anymore. I don't get to go fight Rusalka ever. Ever. And that is very frustrating. Why couldn't we have just added some, like, calamity level? Like, hey, like, if they still wanted to weekly gate it, it could have been like, I'm going to do C5 Jordine and get 5 stones from Jordine. But you have to be a certain gear score level to attempt the C5 version of Jordine. How did I just come up with a solution to that in, like, 4 seconds? Like, what are we talking about? And I think that their idea there was that, like, okay, well, the bosses escalate in difficulty level in terms of, like, mechanics, right? That's not necessarily true either, because my understanding is that Kafris is easier than Karshan is. Right? Like, I don't get it. It does not compute. Does not compute. So I'm just like, this only really, and the worst thing on this list is this right here. I think that this is the most glaringly bad issue in the game, and this is what I wanted to focus on. Okay, so yeah, the overarching issue is that we're moving towards like a very weekly gated, like time gated MMO, and we're stepping away from the open world sandbox that we had for so long. The big problem here is that grind is becoming much more gated because of Agris. Adventurers are not going to want to grind when their Agris is not there. I've had numerous people come into chat. I've been doing it for hours and hours and hours this week. It went from like, oh, I have to grind 2.5 hours today to I have to grind 5 to 6 hours today to get to my quota that I need for trash loot. That's a tremendous difference. Like, I go from making like 4 bill an hour at Zephyros to making like Tungrad Ruins money in like Agris to no Agris range. It's brutal. It's actually just, and I think that it is so bad. You're like, oh, well, it's not technically gated, then you can just keep grinding for the sake of it. Most people are not going to do that. There is a certain, and I'm the guy, I preach about not wanting to be efficient in Black Desert and approaching the game in a non-efficient way. SMN RNDM says an even easier way to fix it is to have each boss give 1 stone. if you can and want to do more stones and do all the bosses. No, I don't want to have to kill every boss every week. No. I don't want to have to kill every boss every week. Anyway, I preach about not wanting to be efficient, right? Like, it's like, hey, you should not play. It's a marathon, not a race. You should not want to be efficient in the game constantly. Like, you shouldn't have this overwhelming need to be efficient all the time. But I do think that there is a like certain level. There's like if there's like a line where like you're looking at this like this is peak efficiency, right? And then all the way down here at the bottom, I'm just gonna put it right above chat here. Is like losing money. Right? You're losing silver, right? So like, and everything in between. There is a certain level of efficiency that I think adventurers are willing to accept, right? That line is usually like, okay, well, I play Awakening Dark Knight in PvE, and although she is one of the least efficient classes in the entire game in PvE, I'm still willing to take that hit because I enjoy playing DK. Like, you know, it's not that big of a difference, right? And you see this reflected like when a class becomes so unplayable in PvE, like Awakening May was not in a super great spot in PvE at a lot of grind zones right now, neither is Deadeye. When a class becomes so brutally inefficient in PvE, players quit the game because they feel like they can't play their class anymore and like it's just a waste, right? For the majority of adventurers are like, I'm just gonna roll to another class, or they're just gonna stop, they're just gonna play the game a lot less, right? But for classes wise, most people are probably not going to give up based on their class, right? Because most classes, they make it just like a reasonable amount of money. But like there is a line of efficiency that adventurers are really going to accept in their gameplay before they're just going to say, well, fuck it, I'm just not going to play anymore, right? And that line usually happens somewhere in like the middle, right? It's like, well, I am making silver and putting silver in my warehouse. And yeah, it's not particularly super efficient, but you know what? I'm enjoying it, so it's nice. Right? They probably wouldn't be doing that if they were losing silver while doing it, right? They're probably just not going to do it in most cases. So like there is a line for efficiency that adventurers will accept. And I think that Agris brings us dangerously close or below the line of efficiency here. So like we're, the level of efficiency that adventurers are okay with. So like when you run out of Agris, how many people literally just say, okay, I'm done? Because they feel like it's just not worth it to grind anymore. Because they're just like, I might as well just wait for my Agris to come back. And so at that point, you're like, all right, well, you're only getting 20k Agris a day, right? So you're getting maybe 140k Agris a week, right? That's not good because you can blast through like 40k Agris in an hour, right? Like we're going to enter a point where grinding is now weekly gated based on Agris, and now they're going to sell us the solution to being able to grind more. And sure, people like Zethian are going to grind without their Agris, but he's already beaten the game, and he does not represent the vast majority of the player base on an issue like this. Like, this is what I think, like, issues like this subtle thing, because, like, players don't really talk about this very much, or haven't started talking about it a crazy amount yet. Issues like this Agris thing, I think they're a serious problem. I think that is one of the primary things that drives people from playing the game actively. And now let's talk about, because I've explained this before as well, the scale of quitting a game. Okay, so in Black Desert, this is if this line represents your total playtime, if this represents 100% of your playtime, right? And 80% of your playtime is active, right? Which is not true for most people, right? As you start quitting a game, normally the people that quit and they quit for long periods of time, they're not people that are just like, oh, I'm playing actively like a ton, and then they just the next day they just stop playing altogether. That's usually not how quitting works. Some people will say they'll go from like playing BDO full time and then they'll release a video or something. They're like, guys, I'm quitting BDO forever. And we're like, yeah, okay, bud, see you tomorrow, right? Like that's, we all know, we've been there, right? We've been there. The path to quitting BDO for extended periods of time is actually just watching the active playtime of players decline, right? So like you go from being an 80% active player to being a 60% active player, to being a 50% active player, to being a 40% active player, to being a 30% active player, to being a player that, oh, well, now I'm only AFK fishing. right? Well, now, so like the AFK fishing starts to overtake their overall playstyle. They start letting go of the game, and weekly gated content is a phenomenal way to get people to start AFK fishing. Because if they feel like their time is just not valuable in the game, or like they just don't, like, yeah, you could say, oh, I'm grinding because I have fun grinding. Yeah, that's only going to get you so far for most adventurers, right? Yeah, you can say that that's copium. That's like 100% cope, right? Because we do enjoy grinding, right? But like, if you feel like it's useless, if you took gear completely out of the equation and you said, hey, do you want to go play BDO today? You just remove gear from the game altogether. Remove it as a concept from the game. And all Black Desert is just taking a character with fun combat and just grinding in circles with mobs by yourself with no friends, because we all know there's no group grind zones in the game, right? Are you actually going to keep doing that? Maybe a little bit for a while. But sooner or later, you're going to stop, right? So you see that logic kind of just falls through almost immediately. The gear does have something to do with it. Some efficiency, your time has to be somewhat valuable. In some way, your time has to be contributing to an overall goal for the vast majority of people playing the game, okay? Like, you can easily dissolve this logic in no time, right? Weekly gated content basically takes the aspect of the game that people love a lot, which is being able to grind infinitely and progress as much as they want or as quickly as they want, and it throttles it so hard that now the majority of players are going to be like, well, I only really need to spend my agris every week, and then I don't need to grind anymore, right? And I only really need to do my weekly gated Adania boss, and then I can't progress anymore, so I'm just kind of done, right? So like, for a player that's already full deck Sovereign, full deck Karazad, they're basically just going to log in, do the Adania bosses, and then maybe log out again or just AFK fish, and then keep orders down on Kronstones. That's it. That's all they're going to do. You don't encourage them to actually, because why grind for 2 billion an hour? That doesn't make any sense. Grinding for 4 billion an hour, that might be enticing, but 2 billion an hour, they're really not about it at that gear level. It just doesn't make any sense. Plus, they can't progress their gear anyway, right? So, I don't know. I'm curious what people have to say about something like this. I'm curious what chat has to say. I only play BDO because of the life skills, to be honest. The letdown is that it doesn't make as much silver as grinding, and clicking Prion takes 3 to 5, 10 times more than Karazad and maybe Sovereign. Life skilling's kind of a different issue, and I do think that like the weekly gated content is going to come for you too. I think it's going to come for you too. And I guess that this should also probably be a part of the video, and so I appreciate you. I want to make something really clear, that when Pearl Abyss destroyed PvP about 1.5 years ago now, when they changed...
I do like to recommend something. Remove agris from the game and make every grind zone 30% more trash loot.
They're not going to do that. They're just not going to do that. Like, Agris was fine the way it was originally implemented. Nobody really saw a problem with it. Not every spot was Agris, so it didn't feel like you needed to have Agris to grind, and the Agris only increased it by a certain amount at certain grind zones. So like it wasn't that big of a deal, because like the trash loot wasn't as, like, percentage-wise, it wasn't as important as it is now. Now your trash loot's 80% of the money you're going to make for the hour. So if you get half the trash loot, well, you're totally screwed, bro. You're not making any money. You're not making any money. So when they destroyed PvP about 1.5 years ago, a lot of the PvEers in the community were like, yeah, PvPers, we don't care. I don't give a shit about these changes. I don't care about PvP. Like, you, like, no one cares. I'm just going to keep grinding forever. And so I'm going to present you with a scenario now, okay? Because I'm just being honest, okay? First, they came for the PvPers, and I didn't care or say anything because I wasn't a PvPer. Then they came for the life skillers, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a life skiller. And now they've come for my weekly grind, and they've ruined my PvE grind, and there's no one to fight for me because they killed everybody else. Okay? Like, guys, we have got to start working together as a community to advocate for changes in the game. Even if you don't necessarily feel super strongly about it, they will eventually come for you. And this is Pearl Abyss coming after the PvEers. Okay, you thought that they couldn't ruin like your unlimited grind. I'm just gonna grind forever. Oh yes, they can. Because the next expansion that comes out in Black Desert Online, watch the grinds. Watch this happen. Okay, you can quote me on it now. Okay, because they've already tested it once. You're gonna shit your pants. Okay. What if, and hear me out, a grind zone was only available to you 2 hours a week? Uh-oh. What if you could only progress through that grind zone and it was only available 2 hours a week and then it disappeared? Sound familiar? Because they've already done it once. Golden Pig Cave. But the difference is that was the trial run. That was the test run. For a lot of adventurers, you didn't need to grind Pig Cave, but it was the best silver in the game. Right? And we praised them. Great success, Perlibus. What a great grind zone Pig Cave was. People loved it. What if your progression was gated behind grinding Fortunate Pig Cave? Uh-oh. Now you can't grind infinitely. Now you're Now you don't get to go out and do what you want, but congratulations. You have you got what you wanted. It was fun, right? You having fun with Pig Cave? Okay? So again, if you thought that they couldn't ruin PvE, but they could take away PvP, you don't care, right? But now they're coming after PvE, and your grind is slowly becoming weakly gated like slop, okay? You're not going to have anyone left to fight for you if you don't stand up and start saying something. Like, it's just the way that it goes. And like, I see the game trending in this weakly gated. It is just more and more and more weakly gated shit. And it's funny because the Black Desert community criticizes other games like Lost Ark, like Throne and Liberty, right? For just being weakly gated slop. It's like, haha, enjoy your weeklies, loser. I'm gonna go grind infinitely. Are you? And for how long? How much longer? Because right now, again, we're continually pushing in this direction. Every single patch, it feels, every single month, it feels, we're just taking baby steps towards essentially only being able to play Black Desert for our weekly gated stuff. Like, there's probably a lot of people that, for the Adonia stuff, they're just like, well, I ran out of Agris, so I only really did the weeklies at the different grind zones to get my end times for the week, and then I stopped grinding. Or I used my Agris doing the weeklies, and then I stopped grinding. Like, and that's it. And then they're done. Because, like, they're like, it's just not worth it. Right? Infinite grind only exists in PoE. No, it's not really infinite grind in PoE either. Because you end up finishing a build. And then you're done, right? But, like, yeah, you can... You can just, like, start over again, and people do enjoy it. You're right, PoE does do it better. 100%. There's just no weekly gated stuff in PoE, at least. Right. Wait, time gated the hardcore server also? Oh, excellent point. Thank you. This is why I do this live with chat. Hardcore server weekly gate. Hardcore what? Who? Huh? Huh? Let's not forget that the developers have not said a word about this. First, it was all we ever heard about. Remember, guys, last year, half the goddamn ball was like hardcore server this and hardcore server that, and how much shit we're gonna get. Like, oh my god, like this is gonna be so much fun. We're dedicated to continuing to get changes. Hardcore servers went away, and we haven't heard anything about it. Nothing. Zero. Like zilch. Nada. Not, hey, we went back to the drawing board and we heard that all of you wanted, like, all of the classes to be played. No, they scrapped the content entirely. It's gone. There's, like, I almost guarantee that shit's just not coming back. Like, because it would have come back by now if it, like, we're going to talk about the weekly aspect of it here in a second. But, like, hardcore servers were poorly designed for 2 or 3 reasons. The 2 were the really, really big ones were like, really, really bad. And to be clear, it's more like a daily gate, right? It's more like a daily gated content. But in a sense, it was weekly gated. I think that it was like you could only spend like a certain amount of hours per week, technically, right? But I think there was like a daily thing that you could do. I don't know. It's tough to remember now. It's weekly or daily gated. One of the two. One of the two is weekly or daily gated. That being said, hardcore servers, everybody just wanted to play their class in hardcore servers. That's the obvious thing. We've harped on it a number of times. I'm not going to rehash this, but people just wanted to play all their classes. All the different classes. And we only got 4 classes. One of the biggest things that people didn't like, though, and that killed the game mode, was that the daily for hardcore servers is this supposed to be a hardcore, completely unleashed PvP server, and the daily for this game mode actively encourages you to avoid other adventurers and not interact with them. Right? Like, you legitimately, like, you don't interact with people at all. In fact, for most people that did hardcore servers, their entire purpose was they would join the hardcore servers and they would be like, okay, I hope I don't see anyone. And you would run out and you would kill like as few of mobs as possible while staying as far away as possible from other adventurers. In fact, it got so bad that I would go in and do my daily and like another adventurer would see me and we'd be like, you cool? I'm cool. Yeah. Okay. We just grinding. We chilling. Right? And then you would make a beeline. The moment that the daily was done, you would make a beeline for the exit. You're done. You're head for the exit. Get out. You know, like it didn't encourage you to do what the spirit of the game mode was really encouraging you to do, which was fight other players, right? It's hardcore. You're supposed to, like, it's supposed to be unleashed PvP, right? But the daily is so poorly designed that it actually encourages you not to interact with any of the other adventurers. And I think that the devs see hardcore servers is a failure. So they're like, well, scrap it, we're done. And they're but the reality is, I don't actually think that most adventurers agree with that decision. I think that most adventurers would be like, you don't have to get rid of it. Just give us the ability to play any class that we want. And, you know, that's pretty much it. And like improve the daily so that, you know, we have to interact with each other. But like that's about it. And like the game mode was seaworthy. It was possible. I think that they would have had like 10 to 15 times the number of players participate in hardcore servers had they simply just allowed people to play whatever they wanted to. It is what it is. Sorkmane. Sorkmane. True, brother. So true. Just remove stamina. Everything will be fine. Dark Knights won't be a problem. Screw hardcore servers. I'd love to see classic ones in 2018. Roaming around with Laverto and try Witch's Earring. Total reset, but with content we already have. You want BDO Classic. Like, well, if... Honestly, this company is becoming... I hate to be this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bungie business model. Okay. Bungie are very green energy friendly. Reduce. Reuse. Recycle, baby. Okay. The reason Destiny 2 is such shit game now is because all they do is just reduce the amount of content that you can do. They reuse the old content and they just recycle it with new mobs. Ass. Okay? Nobody wants to keep playing it. At its core, Destiny was a very, very good game. Like the raids and stuff, phenomenal. But like people just stop playing it because, you know, you do this enough times. But you look at Pearl Abyss, guys. Dekia Crescents reduces the amount of actual dashing and everything that you actually need to do. You stand at a tower, okay? It is reusing the exact same mobs from last time, and it is literally recycling the same formula that they did in 2017, okay? All of Dekia did this. All of it. Everything. Reduce, reuse, recycle. That do be the name of the game, because they don't want to innovate. They don't want to innovate. And like you talk about these new grind zones, every single one of them is a tower spot. Every one of them is a tower spot. Every single grind zone that they create. Dokebi Forest is a tower spot. Honglim Base is a tower spot. Aetherion is a tower spot. Nymphomere is a tower spot. Orbita is a tower spot. Zephyros is a tower spot. Everything. After you reach a certain level in the game, there is only tower. There's no more options anymore. You only grind tower zones. And for those of you, because I can already see the goddamn YouTube comments, I can already see them, that are like, I actually, I like tower spots. I find them very refreshing. Okay, we understand that you like your Honglim base because it's really chill. But in 15,000 hours, are you actually still going to like only grinding Honglim base? Because that's all Zephyros really is. It's Honglim base again. Okay, it's just Honglim base again. Mobs keep spawning, you keep killing them until the boss spawns and you kill the boss. That's it. That's all it is. And it's been there. It's the same thing. They don't want to innovate. The reason that these towers, and this goes back to my earlier point that I think that the devs are straight up, they're on the way out, man. They don't want to develop anything new. They don't want to do anything else. Okay, they don't want to innovate. They don't want to do anything else. I think that they straight up, they don't want to balance the game anymore. They don't want to balance for PvE anymore, and so every single spot is a tower spot because it actually keeps PvE in check. They don't actually have to adjust any of these classes if everyone is grinding on the same timer. It's the truth. Okay? Like, alright guys, that's it for the weekly gated content video. That's all I really wanted to talk about there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think it's really that big of a problem, or do you think I'm overblowing it? Because it's just something that's been bothering me lately. Anyway, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Catch you in the next one.